Evening. It's another Thursday evening. It's another opportunity to be great. It's another time for our stories, your stories, our journey, your journey. This is us. Welcome, welcome, welcome to episode 7 of the This Is Us podcast. I am Teddy Jones, and I am winging it solo this evening. Unfortunately, my co-host, Latoya, my wife, my partner, is unable to be with us this evening, but she is holding things down, and I am going to be holding it down over here with you as we get ready for another episode of Impact, another episode touching lives as we share our story, hear your stories, as we share our journey and look at your journey around family, around relationships, towards a healed, healthy, and wholesome society with the family as the foundation building block. I am delighted to be with you again, and we look forward to nothing less but more and more greatness this evening. We have a special guest to share with us this evening. This evening, we grapple with a very, very, very serious matter. Young and widowed, like seriously? We're going to be talking about the reality of widowhood. I was thinking this morning that when couples stand before the marriage officer and repeat the words, till death do us part, I believe that subconsciously what we are saying in effect is that until death parts us, we will do the us thing. We will do us until death separates us. But I mean, who even thinks about, much less expect, death to actually separate them, you know? Perhaps in reality, people are more afraid or more conscious of being separated by divorce, another serious reality, than actually being separated by death. It's morbid. It's part of life's reality, part of our lived experience, our lived reality that we don't like to think about, much less talk much about. And certainly we don't want to even contemplate being separated from our spouse by death. Our guest this evening is Miss Camille Watt. Camille is almost a lifelong friend, and we've known each other for the greater part of just about 24 years. I was counting recently how long I've been in Jamaica, and that's just about how long I've known Camille. We were batchmates at the Jamaica Theological Seminary all the way through, and so she holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in theology with a minor in guidance and counseling, trained guidance counselor. And she hails from Savannah Lamar. Wait, just noticed something, Camille. She hails from Savannah Lamar in the Westmoreland part of Jamaica. And she's currently the youth minister the youth minister at the Savannah United Church in the Cayman Islands. So from Savannah Lamar to Savannah United Church in the Cayman Islands. Camille, good evening. What's up? What's happening over there in Cayman? What's the weather like? We had quite a downpour of showers here in Kingston and perhaps other parts this afternoon. What's happening? What's up in Cayman? What's the weather like over there currently?
Well, I'm happy to say that today has been bright and sunny. We're somewhat back to normal. The storm has passed, so there's much to be thankful for because Cayman suffered greatly during Ivan, and everyone gets extra scared and terrified when it comes on to storms. So we're
I
really
can just
grateful.
imagine.
Yeah, so we're sunny this side and all is good.
Right, right. Did you guys have much rain over the
We
associated
did.
with? Yeah, okay.
We did.
But no flooding, right?
We had a little flooding, but nothing major. It took about 2 days before the water receded. So it wasn't bad. We didn't have a bad impact. We just had a lot of wind and rain for one day, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think just very a very small section of Jamaica had the wind, but for the most part, quite a bit of rain. And then today again, just getting in off the road, the traffic was pretty terrible from the afternoon showers. But it's great to have you here with us. Welcome to the This Is Us podcast.
Thank you, Teddy.
Yeah. We're going to be hanging out.
All right.
Yeah. So from Jamaican girl, born and raised Jamaica. And now you've been in Cayman, how long now?
3 years. It's been 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yes. I
It
came up
seems
right
longer
before
though.
COVID. I know it feels like 5, but I came up right before COVID. The September before COVID came the following year.
Got you.
Yes.
Latter part of 2019.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. What's it like there? What are some of the similarities and differences in life with Jamaica, Cayman? Similarities, differences.
Well, Cayman is a lot like Jamaica in terms of, I love the 7 Mile Beach. It reminds me so much of where I'm from, because as you know, Westmoreland is close to Negril.
Yeah,
cool. Yes, and in Negril we have the 7 Mile Beach and all the hotels are on that strip. So we call it the hip strip. So Cayman has that as well. So I love the beach. That's my favorite part of Cayman. It's very resourceful, and that's one of the differences is that everything is at your fingertips. It's, you have the convenience is here in terms of the lifestyle. It's just that everything is very expensive here, but it's very resourceful, especially for the church, because back home in Jamaica, being in the country, we may not be able to afford certain luxuries like having for instance, when we have our Christmas cantatas or Easter cantata to decorate and all of that, we have to be very innovative and creative to come up with our props and our decorations and our costumes. But here it's just a matter of purchasing a kit, and you have your they even give you CDs explaining how to set up. So it's much easier, and things are very resourceful. We're able to get things very quickly and use it effectively for ministry.
Cool. All right, nice. And then the similarities.
Apart
from the beach.
Well, it's a similar Caribbean culture. In terms of the food and people. We have a lot of Jamaicans here on island as well, and it's homely. So it reminds me a lot of home in terms of the people and relating to persons here. In the town, it's almost like a little mini Miami. So it's a little different. Yes. But you do have the other part of the island, which is the eastern part, that reminds me a lot of my hometown, which is Savannah Lamar. So those are the similarities in terms of the tropical feel of it.
Right. So it's a kind of a tropical meets big, tropical meets metropolitan.
Yes.
A nice blend, I suppose.
Yes, nice blend. Yeah.
Cool. And there are quite a bit of Jamaicans over there, like yourself, and quite a bit. Right. Yeah, it's interesting. The very, very strong connection between the two, Jamaica and the Jamaica Islands and the islands that make up the Cayman Islands.
Yes.
Good stuff. Right, so let's hear a little bit more about Camille. What makes Camille happy?
What makes Camille happy? My children at church. I don't have any of my own, but I'm so grateful to the parents for loaning me theirs, at least once or twice per week. They really bring me joy, especially when I see them growing in the Lord, growing in their faith. becoming women and men of God, and just growing up. I really look forward to my youth programs, and just getting involved with the kids and doing things, because we do a lot of missions and evangelism in our activities. So being able to bond with them and be that mentor and guide, it really gives me a lot of joy to see them mature and grow. So they are definitely, when I thought about it, I was like, yes, definitely my children. My
Yeah,
children.
there's a there's a special joy that comes, that
There
sense of
is.
fulfillment, knowing that you are impacting lives, and particularly
Yes.
children and youth, when we think
Yes.
about what's happening with that particular age group. So I can certainly understand, and that connects, that resonates, and
Yes.
that's always been you. I mean, from
Yes.
JTS days right through, you've always had a strong heart for children and youth. It's good to see you functioning in the pursuit of your passion, and certainly what is your calling.
Definitely, definitely. Even my Jamaican kids, there are times when I still get pictures from parents of who gone to high school and who is in college, and it
Right,
makes me
right.
not only old, yes, but it makes me feel blessed to be a part of these families and their lives.
Uh,
Yes,
you are
indeed.
actually getting old.
Oh, don't remind me. We
Just saying.
are in
We,
a good way.
yeah, we're actually getting old. Yeah, but it's it's great. It's great. And as we come to look at the harsh realities of life, yeah, the fact that life throws some serious curveballs
Oh,
at
yes,
us, and
yes,
it's
yes.
kind of like, somebody recently used the imagery of the 100-meter hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
There's a break, but it's a short break, and then you get to the next hurdle,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to exert yourself to get over that hurdle,
Get over it.
and then you
Yeah.
land, and then you have a little space, and then it's another hurdle.
Yes.
That's how life is. But
That's like,
I suspect, Camille, and as we talk a little bit about your philosophy of life, I
mhm,
suspect that what you just shared about doing and the practice and the pursuit of your passion, I
mhm.
suspect that that's part of your philosophy of life, particularly as it relates to dealing with the vexed realities of life. You became a widow at quite an early age, but we're gonna get to that in a moment. But share with us, what's your philosophy of life?
My philosophy of life, I would say, comes from Philippians 4, verse 8, where it says, whatsoever is true, whatsoever is noble, whatsoever is right, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is lovely, admirable, and praiseworthy, think on these things. I strongly believe that that sums up who I am in some ways and who I aim to be. Um, when I think of whatsoever is true, noble, and right, I remember growing up, I was always one of those persons who was about justice. I was quiet. Teddy, I was very quiet and introverted, but you bring up a topic where there's some form of
Yes.
injustice or something that is unfair, I became very passionate about it. And I find that I still am. Only normally it's a bit more vocal, right? But I've always been a passionate person about what is right and just. Um, and that is something that I has propelled me a lot, even in my Christian faith. But also my personal mandate, which I got even when we were at JTS,
Yeah.
was to bloom where I'm planted. It was actually a plaque I saw on Marsha's desk.
Wow.
Marsha said, yes. And I was like, what's that plaque? And she was like, oh, someone gave it to me. And I just found it so interesting. And then we went on a retreat, and we were given an activity to find just find a quiet spot to meditate and to come back and regroup. And all the nice spots were taken, and I found a broken tree that was very muddy. And you probably remember this was I think it was in Mandeville, Uncle Courtney's retreat.
At Kendall.
A Kendall camp, right?
Yes, yes,
And I
yes.
remember there was a it was very muddy because I had on my sneakers, and I saw this wild plant growing. It had prickle for the trunk of it,
Right.
but at the top was a beautiful blossom. It was very pretty, and it was in the mud. And that was when the Lord reminded me of the plaque, bloom where you're planted. And that became my personal mandate. And that has really propelled me through ministry, not just in working full time, but even when I worked in the secular, because then I was working at the parish council and all these other places, I always held to that mandate. So when I think about whatever is lovely, admirable, and praiseworthy, still work in progress, but it is my aim to always try to bloom for the Lord wherever I am, even if it's not necessarily a place of worship or ministry. In everything that we do, we bloom.
That's powerful. Wherever, whenever, and also in whatever circumstances.
Exactly.
Whatever is happening in that time and space. And you've kind of answered the next question, but we're gonna get to that. We're gonna take a quick break, and we will be right back with more of This Is Us, Young and Widowed. Like, seriously, stay right there. We will be right back. All right, welcome back to episode 7 of This Is Us. We're hanging out with Camille Watt. Camille is currently over on, is it the Grand Cayman? Or what's the other one? Grand Cayman. What's the other one called again?
It's the Cayman Islands.
Well, so the others.
And they have the Brack and you have Little Cayman, but I'm Little on Grand Cayman.
Brack, and you're on Grand Cayman. Right, she's on Grand Cayman, but she is a Jamaican girl hailing from Savannah Lamar in Westmoreland. So you were sharing with us your philosophy of life, Camille, bloom where you're planted. And out of that kind of emerged the connection between your faith and being able to cope with life's challenges. So I want us to explore that some more, because we're kind of setting the foundation for you sharing a little bit about your story as it relates to becoming a young widow and dealing with all of that. So we want to kind of just set the foundation. Your faith, you became a follower of Jesus Christ early in life, through teenage years, through college and post-college and all of that. And even through those times, there were challenges, but perhaps even more challenges in your 20s and early and 30s and so on. How did your faith really matter and make a difference in dealing with life's challenges? Because one of the things I find is that for some persons, maybe a lot of persons, there is, okay, this is my faith, or okay, I believe in God. And then there is the reality of when life hits, when life knocks the wind out of you. And there is a lot of times a disconnect between that profession of faith and just how we work through the difficult circumstances of life, because life can and life does become extremely challenging. This idea of the hunky-dory, floating on the clouds, playing your harp, walking on roses because you are a child of God. I mean, I just don't know about that. The reality is that life hits you hard. And there's sickness, there's disease, there's loss, there's financial challenges. There are all kinds of life happening. And one's faith has to make a difference. Talk to us a little bit about that, Camille.
Well, I'm happy you mentioned that, Teddy, because one of the other verses that came to mind, which is one of the verses that I hold dear to know, that has really helped me through some of the most difficult times in my life, is Jeremiah 29, verse 11, where it says, "For I know the thoughts I think towards you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a bright future." And it was just recently too. I mean, I've always held on to that verse, knowing that God, I know it's rough. and I'm not sure what tomorrow will bring, but my hope is in you. And the other day, I did a research on the word hope for a session that I had with the kids, and it was interesting to understand the real Greek and the Hebrew and the real understanding, the exegesis of the word hope. And in my discovery, hope, that means you have three different meanings to hope. You have kavah, and you have Yachal, and you have Elpis. So Yachal is more of a trusting hope. It's a calm, trusting hope to say, Lord, I have proven you over the years. I'm just going to relax and I'm just going to trust you. But then there's another hope, which is Kava, which speaks about an anxious hope. It's like an anxious anxiety with great expectancy, knowing that God is. And honestly, that is what has kept me. It's just staying in a place of knowing, of hoping and trusting God, knowing that it may be difficult today, but it's going to get better. And that is what has really helped me with it. And yes, I've had my rebellious phase. And that I'll speak a little bit on when we get to the grieving part. And I did have times when I challenged God. Yes, I did. But at the end of the day, it always boils down to being rooted in Christ and being rooted in your faith and trying to dig deeper into God, even in the broken and the weak moments when you can't pray. But another thing that has kept me too, Teddy, is people, the friends and people that would pray for me. I mean, I could literally feel myself being lifted up by prayers. And there were times when I couldn't pray. There are times when I didn't know what to say to God. There are times when I struggled with anger and a lot of different things. And some of that anger sadly was directed to God. I didn't want to acknowledge it because who am I to be angry at God? But I mean, when I was honest with myself, I realized that I was, but I am grateful that we serve a gracious and a merciful God. And he understands our hearts, he understands our intentions and our motives. And he knows that though those emotions were there, he knew deep down my love and respect was still for him. And I think he used that to minister to me in so many different ways.
He is the one who gave us those emotions, Camille.
Exactly.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And I just love how you're keeping it real, because that's one of the foundational pillars of the This Is Us podcast. We are not into the fanciful stuff and the hairy-fairy stuff. We want to keep it real. And a lot of people, I feel is one of the things I feel very strongly about. There are just some things that I think church and organized religion have led people down some wrong pathways, and some of them I think that, quite frankly, we need to publicly apologize for. And one of them is giving these people this notion or this ideology that we somehow can't be real with God about our feelings. For me, if we can't be real with God about how we really feel, then we are not being authentic. Then our relationship with God is not authentic. And we try to make excuses and euphemize and try to allegorize and all of that. The raw reality of
that's true.
How the Bible describes the people in there and their relationship with God. You take David, for example, and in many of the Psalms, his poems and songs that he wrote, he very vividly expressed his anger at what he saw and how he felt about God's inactivity. And the prophets. I mean, Jeremiah at one point said to God, "God, you deceived me. You tricked me." Right? You called me to be a prophet, and here I am working myself off, and nobody's listening to me. You deceived me. Right? And I think we need to help people to understand that, hey, God can handle our emotions. If we are angry at him for how we perceive things are and are not, then it's okay to vent at him. Of course, I'll say you're not going to pass your place and be disrespectful and dishonor God. But if you, God, I am upset. I am upset. And I want you to know that I'm upset. I mean, he already knows that we are upset. But he wants us to keep it real and verbalize that because he can handle it. Yeah. So I'm glad you shared that, Camille. It's certainly, I believe, going to help someone who is perhaps at this very moment struggling with those very things. Life is not making sense. You feel as if it is unfair. You are struggling to reconcile the idea of a God who is merciful and kind and full of love and what you are grappling with in the very moment. And there's this tension between the emotions. God can handle your emotions. So you went through that. You had the benefit of friends, good friends who helped to pray you through and to lift you up in prayer. And that's a big deal. That's a big thing because again, we need that. The genuine prayer support of others when we are weak, when we are in our moments of weakness. All right. So Camille, I'm sure.
So sorry about that. My computer seemed to have freezed.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. But this show must go on because so Camille, I mean, I can't say that at the beginning, and I said during the week. Growing up, the idea of a widow or a widower for me was always, a very older person. I literally did not know of any widow. I would say at the very least under 50 years old. Certainly while I was in Grenada, under 20 was probably in my somewhere in the latter part of my 20s that I first met a young widow. And I mean, I was literally blown away. I'd never thought about it. So let's jump right into that part of your story, Camille. I mean, it's your story. Start wherever you want to start. If you want to go back a little bit to the wedding, or wherever you want to start, or the actual moments when you learned that as a young lady in a young marriage, your husband is gone.
Well, to be honest, I believe the Lord prepares us. He always prepares us for things like this, unexpected grief or situations. He used to speed. I don't know if you remember, he used to drive. He used to drive really fast. And I remember once he had a major accident and he was in the hospital, and I stood at the door and I looked at him and he was calling for me to come, and I decided, no, I just can't deal with this right now. I can't. And that was me being tough love to say, look, I'm not ready to be a young widow, so you need to get your act together. But where do I start? It was not an easy experience for me. Being
Obviously
in church and being a woman of God, I honestly did not know how I was going to deal with it. Right. But I knew at some point I just had to. In fact, when he died, I actually went into shock for 5 days.
Mm-hmm. And what was your age again at the time?
I was 29 at the time. 29. I had just turned 29. Right. And when he died, I went into shock for 5 days. And during that 5 days, I could not speak because he, as you would have known or would have heard, he died in a car accident, but he burned. So I had to go and identify the corpse, and that just something went through in my head, and that was it. Yeah. So I knew what I wanted to say, but the words just would not come out in the right way. It was all gibberish. And I remember one evening, just lying in bed, and I said, Lord, I know I have a funeral to plan. I know I have to get through this, but I honestly don't know how. I don't know how to comprehend what's going on, and I don't know how to deal with it. And the next morning I got up and I was okay. I was able to go into the kitchen, in the dining table with my mom, and have breakfast and have a conversation. So that was when I realized that this was not something that I could face on my own. This was something that only God could truly take me through. And that was when I realized, the church family would come around and they would be asking, oh, Auntie Camille, how comes you up and about? Just that. I was like, honestly, I don't know, because there are just times where the Lord just, the Bible said that the joy of the Lord is my strength. Yes. I literally experienced that because I knew that I had to get my act together, and I just had to do what I had to do. So that was when you get to the stage of, I wouldn't call it fight or flight, but it's similar in the sense where you're going to have to go through this. So you're either going to go through it or you're going to run away from it. And I just knew that I had to go through it. So my approach was to, I just have to get it together. And I think his sister called me to Tanisha, and she said, Camille, I know that you're processing everything right now, but the reality is you still have a funeral to plan. So you really have to try and get it together. And that was like my wake-up call, like, oh yes, there's supposed to be a funeral. So
wow. Yeah.
So that was when I realized that I just had to do what I had to do. But for me, Teddy, it was a lot. The grieving process was not, for me, it was not as strict as it is in the books, because there are 6 stages in grieving.
Right. And that's the thing, Camille, everybody's journey is different.
It's different. Yes. Yeah. It's different, very different for everybody. And I found that there are times when I would have probably 3 of the different stages. I would feel anger, I'd feel guilt, I'd feel them at once. Right. And then there are times when, I was okay. And it didn't happen like, you probably think all of it would have happened within a 1-year period or a 2-year period. No, I mean, it has taken a long process of introspection, of processing things, of trying to see, identify my emotions, understand what these emotions mean, what is the trigger, just constantly assessing myself and trying to practice good mental health practices. That has definitely been my lifesaver. Right. Mental health practices.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like your training helped.
Oh yes.
Because prior to that, you would have had to walk students and perhaps persons at church or community, adults, through grieving. And here it is now, you are in the throes of it. You are the one experiencing it, and you have to pull on your very knowledge and experience with grief counseling to help your own self through.
And I think even one of the things that helped me too, I remember once a lady just came to the house. She was looking for somewhere to rent, and she just started to talk about, she had just lost her husband tragically too, and she just started to pour out, and she said, Miss, I've never spoken to anyone. She said not even the police. She could give the police report to. She said she's never opened up to anyone until she started talking to me. So being able to empathize, it's one thing to counsel, but being able to truly empathize, to say it's not always done by the books. I definitely understand where you're coming from, and this is what has helped me. Yes. That really helped me in my grieving process as well, because it gave a new meaning to it, a new perspective, that it wasn't about me. Exactly. It was really God's plan. And I think one of the points I wanted to share too is that I used to think it was wrong to ask God why. And you hear it all the time.
Exactly.
Never ask God why, because who are you to ask God why? And I struggled with that. But I used to ask, I said, God, I'm not understanding exactly why this had to happen. This is just me trying to process and understand things. And one day he gave me the answer, and it wasn't through anybody. I was just sitting there in bed one night, and the Lord just made it very clear that my marriage was not about me. You always set your goals and your deadlines. Oh, I want to get married by this age. I want to have children. Right. My marriage to Anthony was not about me. It was about God's plan. And God made me realize that he had a timeline. He had an expiration date. And because he was married, it brought him closer to God. And he was able to prepare himself for that final day. So at the end of the day, when I realized that my marriage was really a preparation for my husband to face his final day, it gave me so much more peace, because you're able to to understand it from a different perspective. And I think that's what really helps you in grieving, is how you perceive the situation and to try to find a positive way of looking at your experience.
Yeah, that's deep, Camille. That's deep. That's really deep. Because you know, so many persons tend to think of marriage as an end in itself,
Yes.
or you know, maybe from a purely physical, you know, self-fulfilling, self-gratifying perspective. I just say that, you know, this is about me, and yeah, most people want to get married, or you know, marriage is every girl's dream, that kind of a thing. But I like how you put it, that there is a higher purpose in marriage.
Yes.
And the fact that you got that revelation, and how important that was in helping you to just come to grips with this tragedy, right? And again, that's why I can't support those who say that we should not ask God why. Why not? Who am I to ask God why? I'm his child. I'm his son.
Thank you. Yes. And he does say, come and reason with me. You
exactly.
Know, does expect us to do it. Because guess what? He already knows the heart, you know. So he already knows you're asking these questions.
Exactly. I know, right?
It's about being authentic. And I think that God,
exactly.
he really looks forward to us being real with him. And because it's not just being real with him, but it's coming to acknowledge what you yourself is going. Because I was saying to a friend the other day that I'm a venter. Like if I'm bothered or troubled with something, it nags at me, and until I speak it out, it's as if the information is all jumbled up in my head and I just can't figure it out. But as soon as I start sharing, then I find that it becomes clearer. So you get clarity. And it's the same thing when you're actually talking to God and you're confessing to God, God, this is how I feel. It doesn't mean that I want to be rude or disrespectful to you. I just really need some closure, and I need to really understand. Can you kindly just help me to understand? And he's a gracious and a loving God, and he normally does. You know, so our mindset has a lot to do with a lot of the healing process that we go through, not just with grieving, but in anything that we're going through. How we think and perceive things can definitely affect how we proceed. And I remember going to a seminar just about 2 days ago, and the presenter was about mental health, and the presenter was saying, for every negative thought that you have, there is a positive thought. So you can switch any negative thought that you have. There's a positive way of thinking of it. And I think that has really helped me over the years to really come to terms with grieving and with whatever challenges and situations that I'm faced with. It's not easy. It takes practice, but it's possible and it's doable.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the initial 5 days of shock, and then you mentioned the importance of maintaining mental health, mental stability through all of that. Were there any other physical or emotional, psychological effects, symptoms, or after effects?
Oh, yes. No, I was addicted to, I didn't even realize I was addicted to Valium and it's not Plaquenil, it's Valium and Paxil. So when I went into shock, the doctor gave me these prescriptions to help me through the initial stages of grieving.
Right.
So the Paxil was what I call my happy pill. So Teddy, this pill now, trust me, I would once I take one of those tablets, I would be smiling. There's like a permanent smile on my face. I don't even realize it's there. I kid you not. I remember I went to school and the principal said, "Oh, what I love about you, you're always smiling." And I went in the bathroom, Teddy, looked in the mirror just to check it because I didn't feel like smiling. And trust me, the smile was there.
Smile was there. Wow.
so the Paxil was the happy pill. And then the Valium was what made me sleep at night. So I struggled to sleep and I struggled to stay up. So the Valium got me up in the morning I mean, the feeling got me to bed, and the pack still got me up in the morning. And I realized that it started to affect my memory. The veiling was affecting my memory after a while. I said, no, I had to come off of this. So I had to wean myself after a while. I was on it for a year, and I had to slowly wean myself off because I realized I became dependent on it to fight the feelings that I was having. And that also helped me to realize that without these medications, I would have slipped into depression because I was not dealing with the grief.
Right.
So for a few years, I struggled. I really struggled. It's never an easy process, especially losing your partner for life. This is somebody who, in primary school, I dreaming about husband.
Exactly.
And being stuck on mom and all of these things. You have your timelines and all these things.
Right.
And you finally get your husband. You're waiting for the ideal person, and you finally get your husband, and then all of a sudden, just like that, he's gone. So I struggled. I rebelled. I rebelled that there are times when I just didn't want to go to church. I just wanted to. My mom used to call my room the dungeon because I would just lock myself in there. When I go to work, I come home, I lock myself in the dungeon.
Right.
So it's always dark. Until one day, and let me tell you what helped me to turn around. It's interesting. I am animated, right? So I have the childish side of it. So I was watching Lion King.
Yes.
And there's a part in the Lion King where Simba decided he didn't want to go back because he couldn't face his past. He thought he had killed his father. He didn't want to go back. And the monkey hit him in his head and said, "Did you feel that?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "But the pain's still gone, so why are you crying?" And then his father came to him in the pond and said, "Remember who you are. You are a king."
Yes.
And see, that's when the Lord said to me, "Remember who you are. You are a royal priesthood.
Wow.
You are an ambassador for Christ. You
Yes.
are
Identity.
a person."
Yes.
And that was when the Lord said, "This is your legacy. This is your inheritance. So get up and take your position and stand in the position that I have placed you and called you, and declare who you are." And that simple little cartoon was what helps me to pull myself out of the depression. And then I started to do practical things, like packing up his stuff, because I had basically made the kitchen. He was a chef, so I had basically made the kitchen a little shrine. I never went in there.
Thanks for bringing that up, because I during the week I had thought about asking that, and it somehow slipped me. So I'm glad you. Go ahead. I'm glad you remember to talk about that. Yeah, the things that we do as part of the grieving process, that and I like how you put it, the enshrinement of the person, which helps, but then sometimes the prolongation of it. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, I didn't realize the dangers of it, especially from a spiritual perspective.
Yes.
But it's not healthy, because you're actually holding on, and you're holding on to the person, and you refuse to go through the process to get to the acceptance part. And the acceptance part of grieving is actually letting go. And until you truly let go and realize that I'm releasing all of these negative thoughts, I'm releasing the anger, I'm releasing the feeling of betrayal, I'm releasing the guilt, that's the only way you're truly able to allow God to pour back into you. Because that's when God is able to pour in and to fill you with his joy and his love and his peace and his hope. That is when you realize that he's beginning the healing process. That's when the healing process really begins. And it wasn't until a friend of mine, it was a counselor actually, who said to me, why? Because I struggled with letting go, in the sense that I struggled with asking. I had regrets. I regret not telling him certain things, not saying, not letting him know how I felt, how I loved him, and you go through that regrets.
Yes.
And I struggled with that for years, and I wondered, can he hear me, Lord? Just in case he can't hear me up there, just tell him.
Yes.
And then my counselor was like, no, that's not right. I mean, you need to remember that he's no longer here. Like, him gone long time, enjoy himself up there with the Holy Spirit. Him not have no time to remember for you to sit down. He's not waiting to hear an apology from me, if you know what I mean. And that was when it kind of let me. I was like, you're so right. I mean, he would want me move on.
Yes.
So I'm here hoping that he'll hear my apology. But the truth is, he move on a long time.
Yes.
And I think,
Yes.
our loved ones really want us to move on, because we have our lives to continue living. And I think when we can move on and still hold on to a happy memory
That's
without
it.
regret, then that is when you're actually beginning that healing process. When you're able to say, you know what, I need to pick up the pieces. I hold, whenever a memory brings you happiness and not sadness, that is when you know that you're closer to your to that complete healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's important too. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Right. Yep. And which is not to say that every moment after you've begun your healing, or even after you heal sufficiently, which is not to say that every memory is going to
be happy
met
one.
with joy. The truth is, there will still be sad moments. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm happy you said that, Teddy, because the truth is, some people will think that you can put a timeline to grieving. No,
thank you.
You can't, and everybody grieves in their own time and in their own way. Yes. And you find that there are times when I will go back to one of the stages and I'll ask myself, okay, why am I feeling this emotion now?
Yes.
But what I think is important and is very critical is to identify the emotion and then identify the thoughts that has provoked this emotion and deal with it. And I think that a lot of people, instead of dealing with the thoughts, they just brush it aside and say, okay, I'm going to repress it right now because I can't do this right now. Yes. And because of that, it stays there and it comes back again. So, but I think there comes a point where it's important to deal with it. And as I said before, I am, you have to be real, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be real with God, and really identify where did these thoughts come from and how do I deal with these thoughts. And one of the things that I find also helps is talking to someone. I mean, a lot of people may not have the answers, but just a listening ear, it helps. It goes a long way. And getting a different perspective on things too. That is why people say, who counsels the counselor? Counselors sometimes need counseling, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that you're getting a different perspective, and it does help you to see things clearer.
Yeah, because we still do have a culture that kind of has a stigma against counseling.
Counseling, yes.
Right, and then sometimes in our religious circles, even seeking counseling sometimes is construed as an indication that your faith is weak or there's something, somehow some spiritual defect with you. And we want to debunk that. We want to absolutely demolish that argument and indicate that the ministry of counseling and that counselors is part of how God brings about healing.
Exactly.
Right? You mentioned what persons said. I want to bring you back a little bit, rewind a little bit. The persons who said to you, who saw you up and about, and who said to you, "Oh, Camille, how come you're not?" Because it brings to my mind, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. The inappropriate things that people say, perhaps well-meaning and well-intentioned. What was your experience like with that? What are some of the things that you heard that just really had the opposite effect on you?
I hope, Teddy, the one of them that stands out so much in my mind was the day, in fact, the same day when I came out of the shop and I came to sit at the breakfast table. Oh my gosh, somebody came in and said, like she said, it better, I can't speak patois. It's like, Lord, like she said, I'm so sorry to hear, but it better than it's shooting, but him burn up in the car. And I was like really? This was like better than the shooting and then go burn up in the car. And it's like literally, I just got up. I didn't say anything. I just got up, walked to my room, and closed the door because there was nothing. And I found out my mom also, she didn't understand, and God bless her soul because she's passed now. She really couldn't understand why it was affecting me so much. And she was like, you have to fix up yourself, you have to perk up yourself, man. You have to stop the crying. And at some point you have to cry, you have to stop crying. And I remember her saying that all the time until my father died. And when daddy died, then that was when she realized that, okay, this is what it feels like. But there are people who, especially after a year or 2 years, they'd be like, stop posting things on Facebook, man. You need to get up, you need to find a husband. And you need to get a husband, and these things are going to block you from getting a husband. And you know, I tried not to internalize it, but I learned from it too, because there were times when I realized I was holding on too much, and there came a point where I just had to pack up all the pictures. I had to, because believe you me, I had blown up pictures and had it all. As I said, I had created a little space for him, and he had he was a chef. So the kitchen was his place. And I remember it was about a year after, the kitchen was exactly the same. The Milo in the container, everything in there, cobweb, everything around there. I wouldn't go around there, but I left it. That was the thing, as if he was there. And one day the Holy Spirit said, no, this is not right. You need to clear it out. And I just went and I cleared it up, because you're opening yourself to a spirit. I don't know which spirit, but I know it's not Anthony. He's up in heaven or wherever he goes. But you don't want to open yourself to these kind of spiritual things, because you really don't know. And I didn't. So the Holy Spirit told me straight up, just you need to pack away the things and clean out the space and create a new positive energy for yourself. And that really helped me as well. I just had to make up my mind and see, I'm packing away these things. I still have 1 or 2 pictures, but I had to really make a conscious effort to pack it away and to start the healing process. And that was all of a year. It was a year and something after.
Right. Yeah. Well, Camille, I mean, it's just so refreshing hearing you share. You know, I've known quite a bit of the story, but I've learned a lot more of the story this evening. Time just flies away when we're having fun, and just check the time, and we're almost at the end of the show. So some final words. We perhaps will have to have you come back again and share some more, and you know, we really thank you so much, because I know for many persons this is not something that they do, and as you said, you know, you're gonna pray about it and come once the Lord gives you that release. So thanks. Final words for speak, look into that camera and speak to that man, that woman, that boy, that girl, grappling with grief, dealing with the weight of the emotions of grief. A few final words as we wrap up this evening's episode.
Okay. I would say to that person or to you, grieving is your time. It takes time and it's done in your time. Don't ever let anyone tell you to stop crying or to not express yourself if you're grieving, as long as you're not hurting yourself. But if you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to vent, vent. But allow yourself to go through the process. And I would also say, identify these emotions. There are 6 basic stages in grieving. You have denial, guilt, anger, depression, bargaining, and then acceptance. And there are different stages. Take the time to acknowledge these emotions. Take the time to acknowledge what they are and the thoughts that comes with them. And then bring yourself back to your current reality, where you can be in a place of gratitude. And when you stay in a place of gratitude, you will remember the positive things of the person. You remember the positive memories, and hold on to the positive memories and allow that to help you to grow. And most of all, for God to really pour in your heart and for him to really start that healing process, you have to release, you have to let go. You have to allow him to empty you so he can fill you. And never stop talking to God. Be constant with your prayer life. because at the end of the day, he hears. Even if you can't verbalize it, he knows your heart, but don't leave out God, because he's never going to leave you. And nobody else can understand what you're going through except God. So don't leave him out. He's always there, and he's going to help you through it.
Good. Thanks, Camille. And talk to him even if you're upset with him. That's one of the big things.
Yes, man,
we
big
had
time. Especially if it's upset
yes.
him.
All right. Thanks, Camille.
Teddy, I should say I'm out of time, but there's one thing I tried too that helped me a lot. I had to write myself a letter. And I had to tell myself, Camille, I understand that this is how you feel. And I list out how I feel. You have, you know, and I list out the thoughts behind it. And then and then in the letter I said, you know, we need to move on from this, and we really need God to heal us and to get through this. So today, and I date it, we're gonna, you know, end this chapter. You know, and I won't say that at the end of the letter, the chapter was actually closed, but that was a start. A start, you know, and from there, that's a start. I mean, really talking to yourself, it does help. Writing it down, it becomes so real, you know, and that also helps. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks, Camille. So Camille is on Facebook. You can find her on Facebook, Camille Watt, W-A-T-T. I'm sure she wouldn't mind you reaching out to her if you want to just have a heart-to-heart, you know, as she spoke about empathy. Camille will be able to connect with someone in a similar situation in ways that I will not ever be able to. I mean, I've lost some persons close to me, but not like that. All right, so Camille Watt on Facebook. And remember, This Is Us, to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and you can follow us on Instagram at This Is Us Jones Clan. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for your support. Send in your questions, send in your comments. If you have a story that you believe the world needs to hear, send us an email, send us a message on Facebook or on Instagram, and let's talk. And you never know, you just might be on one of the shows. So Camille, keep good, continue serving the youth, continue pursuing your passion, and just enjoy the greatness of life that God has given to you. Everyone, from This Is Us, remember, it's our journey, your journey, our stories, your stories. Until next time, God willing, stay safe, stay positive, and remember, life is in relationships, and relationships are life. Peace out. Thanks, Camille.
Thank you, Teddy. Bye.
Cheers.
All right, let's see.